The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. The Pharisees went out and took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. When Jesus realized this, he withdrew from that place. Many people followed him, and he cured them all, but he warned them not to make him known. This was to fulfill what had been spoken through Isaiah the prophet. Behold, my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved in whom I delight. I shall place my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. He will not contend or cry out, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, a smoldering wick he will not quench, until he brings justice to victory, and in his name the Gentiles will hope. The Gospel of the Lord. Yeah, it's a powerful little passage for any number of reasons. One is that we have this sense Jesus, as he's making his way through, as he is enacting God's agenda, is being opposed by people who hold to other agendas, the agendas of the day. And we've encountered some of them recently, I think, with more depth. The sense of is like Israel existing for its own sake, in the sense that the people of Israel seeing themselves as God's chosen, and so they then encounter the world as not only as a people of privilege, but also as a people who believe that God will do what they want him to do. Some of that means that they realize, I think, in fact, they're driving for military conflict with Rome, and of course, it's a battle they're always going to lose. But because they're a storied people, and they have seen throughout their own scriptures and the stories that are so significant to them, that God sides with Israel in times of conflict, and so at least that's the kind of more superficial narrative, because you see times where that does not happen. But because that's kind of in their minds, they're driving towards a particular kind of purity, holiness, so that they can compel God to make his move for them. I should say it's a little more complicated. It's much more complicated than that. But we see in that basic schema the idea that Israel and the world are not on terribly good terms, at least in the eyes of the Jewish leaders of Jesus' day. They want to overcome Rome. They're not looking to collaborate with them in any way. And even, in fact, there are various kind of gradations of the peoples collaborating with Rome. And of course, those people are sinners, right? This is the prostitutes, the tax collectors, and the rest. They're the people who are then shunned by Israel most forcefully because of their cooperation with Rome. But even in that mix, it doesn't, I don't know that we get the full flavor of whether or not Israel is able to grasp for themselves, if the people is able to grasp for itself the fact that Israel exists for the world. And that's Jesus's agenda. So the new Israel that he brings into being, that he is in himself, and that he makes us, say, members of, the movement that he makes us members of, this is for the world people. The agendas are in conflict at any number of points, and sometimes just in this dead-on conflict. This is why it's amazing to have Jesus quote this part from the book of Isaiah, or why it's so important, because he's again establishing his agenda. When we see that this is the suffering servant, but it's also in Jesus' own mind we see that the suffering servant and the Messiah are one and the same. So Jesus has come to rule, he's come to lead his people, he's come to lead the new Israel movement, but he does so as the suffering servant. Okay, is that the king you're following? It's a good question. Yeah? Are you following a king who is the suffering servant? Does your life look like that? Or does it not? It should. And this is what it says, right, at the end. And in his name, the Gentiles will hope. Right? Even this kind of subtle exploration, right? And before that, in the passage of Isaiah, he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. And what is justice? Right? It's what's due the other. But how do you conceive of that? If your sense of God, I don't know why this would be the case for you, because I recognize all your faces. I'm saying this. I don't know why this would be the case for you, but if your sense of God is that he's a demanding taskmaster, if that's the way you see God primarily, then the way that you will see justice is in like a very kind of low, demanding, bordering on condemnatory approach to other people. Right? God, it's so demanding. God, it's so difficult to live as a Christian. I can't do the things that I want to do, and so on. This is nonsense, moralist garbage. Okay, so, but if you're living that way, I mean, I'm sorry. I actually am terribly sorry for you if you're living that way. If you have that view of God, I feel very, very sorry for you. You have to encounter Jesus, because he's revealing a different God to you. Yeah? Because it's like if we're being treated miserably by God, and that's like the demanding taskmaster or the angry school teacher God, if that's your God, right? Then what do we have but to turn around and do the same? Right? We actually will be living in the image and likeness of our God, and the world doesn't need that. We're not, as Christians, we're not called to be we're not a movement of angry school teachers, like we're not going around picking out everybody's moral faults and failings. And God forbid we have enough of our own. And we're actually probably doing that because we're scared of the vulnerability that, anyway, I don't want to get it, I do want to get into it, but whether or not you want me to get into it is a different question, but yeah, but justice, right? Again, if we're being treated that way by God, then what do we have to give to others? But if God is the God of generous love, if God is God of mercy, then justice changes. Justice, like what is due the other, changes. Because I'm brought up on high. Well, now I've got more to give. I've been shown great mercy. Mercy I can never deserve. Right? That's what it is. It's love that I can never deserve. And it's coming to me anyway because it's the God of generous love. Then what can someone else do to you to have them not receive love from you? Given who God is and how God comes to you. So, and this is the Jesus way, yeah. And it's about the other. And we could imagine, see, even this passage. Now Matthew's using it. Jesus is not himself using it, but Matthew is using it to give some idea of the shape and character of what Jesus is doing. But even that passage would drive Jesus' contemporaries insane, because it's not along the lines of their own agenda. So then the question is, again, whether or not we're going to go with the Jesus agenda or not. Are we these kinds of people? A bruised reed he will not break. Jesus is not going to trample down anyone. You cannot justify doing it. You cannot justify treating someone with less than generous love. You simply cannot do it. This is the heart of the Catholic faith. If you don't believe that, then please be in touch with me and tell me what the heart of the Catholic faith is. Okay? But this is the heart of the Catholic faith, is the God of generous love, is the Jesus way. A bruised reed he will not break. A smoldering wick he will not quench. We're so quick to snuff out a candle. Like a full flame, a full fire that isn't going the way we want it to, snuff it out. Throw whatever it is. I was going to say water. Sometimes water is worse, depending on the fire, right? But snuff it out, right? Blow it out. Get rid of it, right? It's uncontrollable. We don't have it. He won't even quench a smoldering wick. I'm sorry, guys. This is who we have to be as Christians. This is why it matters so much, right? Is because this is who Jesus is, but this is who we are called to be as Christians. We're called to be the world's leaven. We're called to be the world's salt and light. And what it means is that we are the people who are living the kingdom in advance of its full and final implementation. We are living the way of God's generous love even before the world turns the corner. I think the world has turned the corner. The world turns the corner in the resurrection of Jesus. But, right, no matter what your narrative is, even before everyone in the world picks up on it, we are going the way of generous love. And by our going the way of generous love, we just might pick up some people as we go who are interested in living the life that, cuts with the grain, that makes most sense to them, because it's the fully human life. But that is the way of generous love. It's the Jesus way. And it's ours now to entrust ourselves to Jesus, knowing that he's at our head. He's driving it. He's driving the agenda. He is renewing us so that we can be about his work of restoring the world by tapping into and making the foundation of our life the generous love that Jesus brings to life for us.